You're listening to, and this is why I love comics.
Andy and Mike!
And welcome back to episode 2 of And This Is Why I Love Comics podcast. We're back and we're going to talk some more about Cosmic Odyssey. We're going to go through, I love how my voice goes to the Odyssey at the end, that's great. And we're going to do issue 2, 3, and 4 of the series. We started it last episode. And again, I have Mike with us, and we are going to just dive deep into this and try and wrap up the series and give our thoughts about it. Hi, Mike.
Hey, good evening, good morning, good day, whenever this is being listened to or heard.
How are you today?
It's actually doing really well. I just wrapped up doing what is called a tech scout, which is a term used in the production of TV commercials, I found out. So I'm getting ready to film one more TV commercial tomorrow and Friday. And then, so it's been a busy week.
Oh, it sounds busy. I thought you just mowed the lawn.
Yeah, I just did that too. So I can almost multitask.
Almost.
Yeah, I put all that on my resume. TV commercials, graphic design, and lawn mowing.
Issue 2 of Cosmic Odyssey, the book 2 called Disaster, because they all start with D's, of course. I was listening and editing the first episode, and we had a couple questions in our own minds about certain things, and one of them was about Jon Stewart, who we'll probably talk about a little bit this episode, because something happens to him this episode. But we were curious about Jon Stewart's status as a Green Lantern. And so I did a little research, and basically the ring, all the rings, all the remaining Green Lanterns were stationed on Earth for a while, and including some alien ones. This was the original Green Lantern series. I think the series ended at 224, where the Green Lantern Corps that remained broke up, and John's ring wasn't working for a while, and then he got it restored with the help of Hal Jordan. So he was going through some tough times. He left Earth right before Cosmic Odyssey, and then the events of Cosmic Odyssey happened. So he did have an official ring. It just wasn't working right before this episode, or before this series. And I don't remember. It's been a while since I've read that ending of that series, because it wasn't very good. Apparently he got his Green Lantern ring back just before this happened, so that's the status of John's ring.
Now, what do you think? I mean, was that something that you felt? So I would say this was supposed to be like DC's big foray into cosmic adventures and has lasting ramifications, the reintroduction of new gods. Do you think the editorial staff at DC opted to give Jon Stewart a ring back in preparation or in anticipation of this? I wonder what came first.
Yeah, I can't really tell from what I've read which came first, whether it was a editorial mandate or Jim Starlin said, hey, I got to use this character, or I want to use this character, and then, hey, can we have his powers back, because he's pretty useless without it. But Starlin had some of his beats of this story focused on Jon Stewart and what ended up happening to him. This issue became actually one of the few things out of Cosmic Odyssey that stuck. There's a lot of things that I don't think stuck from this series, like the anti-life villain itself. I think it changed to something else. But the one aspect of this 4-issue miniseries that remained was Jon Stewart's failing this mission and causing the death of a whole sector of a galaxy. Because I can remember even a few years ago them talking about how he had to deal with this loss and stuff. So if nothing else out of Cosmic Odyssey happened at DC, the one thing that remains from this series is Jon Stewart's guilt or survival and forgiveness of his guilt regarding his failure here in the series.
Oh, I didn't know that. Now, did this stem, and from this came that Mosaic, the Green Lantern's series, or was that even later down the road?
No, it was actually just after this series, I think. It's probably a year or two after this series that Mosaic came out. I don't know the exact year. Haven't looked it up, but I'm pretty sure it was around this time, but not right away afterwards. I think there was no after the original series, the Green Lantern Corps. I think there was a 2-year hiatus before another Green Lantern series came out, and then when that series came out, Mosaic also came out, I think. So
they gave him his own title, gave him a little bit of a purpose.
Yeah. And I remember buying the first few issues of that series, and I think it was beyond me at the time, or there was too many other distractions. I don't remember liking the series at all of Mosaic. The art was okay, it was pretty, but
yeah, it kind of reminded me like a rough Brian Stillfreeze. It was kind of like somebody just, I don't remember the artist's name right off, but had very much a highly angular style to their artwork.
Yeah, yep. And it was, I remember it being very colorful, like a weird color palette, or not weird, but just something that really shone on the paper a lot more. Maybe it was just the time that coloring was being ushered in as the cure for comics and making everything look better. But I remember it was a strange color palette on that series.
Yeah, I think it was a case where, the whole digital coloring was coming about, and instead of just having, laying down flat colors and all the little dots that kind of help break up color transition, they were actually doing a pretty decent 4-color process, separation and making, subtleties and so forth were coming in. And unfortunately, like most things, you have to kind of feel out the boundaries like a little kid. You have to see exactly how far you can go before you break a thing. And, a lot of that stuff is like, oof, that was a lot of garish colors, a lot of just bright stuff that they could, hey, let's try this. Hey, let's try that. Let's try. And then finally, it's like, okay, now that we've explored how far we can go and we made things look really gross, let's try to rein it back.
Yep.
Now, another lasting thing, and I don't even know if it even had ramifications leading into it, but you were collecting the Demon series post this, but how far or when did the Demon comic series come out? I think it was Stephen Grant that was writing that series or something like that.
Yeah, and Val Semex was the artist.
But they didn't separate the two characters, the Jason Blood and the Demon were one and fused together in that series, if I recall.
Yeah, it was a good series. I enjoyed it. I don't own it anymore, but it was very, I don't know, it was my first collection of the Demon as a character, and I enjoyed it a lot. I remember reading it, but I didn't, it wasn't one of those where I had every issue. I had a lot of it, but it would skip around a lot because most of those I bought at a store called Tradeway on 36th Street, back where we lived. And he had, that was a great store. I wish, I believe the owner has passed, but.
Yeah, I think he was dead while still working there.
Yeah, it was all that pipe smoke. But he would get a lot of recent back issues. I never asked him where he got them from. It was just a used bookstore, but he had a whole wall of comic boxes, and I'd go there probably every couple weeks, and he'd get some new books in, and I'd pull them out, and he'd always get kind of the same books that didn't sell at this whatever comic shop that he bought them from, and I would just buy them. I think they're all $1 or something, and I got quite a few runs of books there. Those were the good old days, I think.
Yeah. Dirt cheap. He didn't know what he had in a lot of the cases. I think I got, from that shop, I bought the first appearance of the Punisher. I think it was Spider-Man 129, Amazing Spider-Man. 129, I think. I can't remember if that's exactly the number or not, but I got that near mint condition, 35 cents.
Yeah.
All of his comics were 35 cents.
Okay. Yeah. I thought they were $1, but yeah, you're right. They were cheaper.
Yeah. Well, in today's economy, that 35 cents was like $5.
Right. Yeah, it was a great store. Maybe we'll do an episode of stores. I'm sure.
Good.
Yeah, I can have a couple people from my comic group that's on Facebook on too. We all have some stories about comic books in the area or comic stores in the area, and they're all very similar.
Yeah, especially about one in particular.
Yeah, probably yes, that one. It's funny how we all bonded over dinner one time, talking about that person. Yeah, but back to Cosmic Odyssey. I mean, we don't have to, but you know.
It shows you how riveting this story is when we so easily digress.
Yeah, and that's
Cover basics of the story. Let's talk about something completely different. Real quick.
right. Which is a shame because the art is very nice, very good. And the story lacks, and as we go through my notes, I'm going to point out some of my problems with this story. But
We'll give an overview, kind of the 40-foot view or whatever they call that. Take a broad stroke of the whole thing.
yeah, I mean, issue 1 we already covered. Kinda, it's basically Darkseid enlists the help of really like it was like a handful of heroes. Which one of my problems is if it was such a big deal, why was there only like 6 heroes invited to this thing? But I guess it wouldn't make quite as entertaining the story. But like if this is, we could lose the entire universe if this happens. Let's get you 5 and you over there. Come with us. We know there's a planet of heroes, but we'll just leave them alone. But
It's so busy. I was kind of wondering about that too, and not to stop you in your overview, but
no, go ahead.
For such a cosmic thing, and DC wasn't ever known to have giant cosmic type characters, but for such a cosmic thing, where was like Spectre, which is like basically their biggest cosmic being at the time, and some of the other like really really big. Last episode we talked about the absence of Wonder Woman, and I think it had to do more with the fact that George Perez was kind of like reworking that mythos, but there's a lot of other characters that are just like, why wasn't this character there? Why wasn't this character there? Why wasn't this character there? It just seems like, you just missed some key people.
Right.
That should have been in it.
But yeah, that's the thing. I mean, this was after Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was in '84. So this is a couple years after that. So they've established a new universe, and there was some pretty powerful new characters introduced. Captain Atom and all these other characters that have had their timeline reset that they could have used. So I'm not sure. I mean, obviously Starlin wanted to use these guys, and that's the way the story was. But in a DC universe kind of thing, I'm not sure why there wasn't more heroes. And there'll be a hero or two that show up later, but just didn't make sense with the cosmic scope of it all.
No. It just, and what is your opinion? Was this more to kind of tell an epic tale, or was it really more of a kind of a pilot, if you would, to reintroduce the new gods?
Oh, it was definitely a pilot, yeah. There was certainly beats of the story that was just there to highlight the history of the new gods and how it is set in this new DC universe. Pretty sure they hadn't used the new gods really at all since the Crisis, so this may have been just a reestablishment of these characters that they wanted to use again. Yeah, definitely a reset. And they're enjoyable characters, and Darkseid is a great villain, but it wasn't Infinity Gauntlet Cosmic where let's introduce every character and have it mean something, where we'll crossover into all these other books. You know, it wasn't that type of event. Maybe there was. I don't know what that event was that year, but it wasn't this one.
And this, I think, was clearly before they would have events every summer, crossover events. This was its own entity, kind of very much a standalone. But at the same point, I was kind of like, this seemed very heavy-handed to try to like, okay, people, you like these characters? You like Batman? Well, we're going to throw Batman in here, but he's paired off with a new god, and then the same thing with all the other characters. You like Green Lantern, or not Green Lantern? Superman? Well, he's paired off with a new god. So that way, if you like Superman, you get to see him work with a new god, and now you'll like this character too. And that's why I kept thinking, it's like the pairing of these guys was just like, you go with this person, you go with this person. The only one, obviously, was the Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter, that they didn't pair off a Earth hero with a new god character.
Right.
I wonder if that, again, the point of, let's try to reintroduce these characters as if to a new generation of readers.
Yeah, probably. And even like the book started out, it was just a normal Darkseid invasion into the Earth, and then it cuts, like that was 6 months ago, and then 2 weeks ago, Darkseid finds Metron and discovers that Metron had tried to find the anti-life equation because he needs to know everything. And then Darkseid learns that, I have to get these certain heroes. And then, the great character Lonar, I don't know, Mr. Lonar. Mr. Lonar shows up, gets all the important heroes to New Genesis. And then we find out that this thing called the anti-life equation has pierced the universe with four aspects of itself, just little parts of himself, and it wants to destroy some of the galaxy so that it can enter fully. And that's kind of, like each hero, like you said, was paired up and was going to go to these different spots in the universe to try and stop this anti-life equation creature from destroying the universe. And that's really the plot. Like, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was written in very much, kind of like classic, very, very traditional writing method, writing style of, okay, establishment, everybody's here, yep, everybody account for it, yep, okay, cool. Now, we're going to have this act of, you're going to go first, and we're going to watch what happens with you, and we'll complete your story, and then we're going to go to the next person and complete their story, and then we'll have it all culminate at the end with one big thing, and then wrap it all up. And it was, that's the way every story is, so I'm not saying anything great when I'm saying that, but the main thing was more about, it followed it so by the numbers. And there wasn't really any real twists. There was supposedly some twists, but it wasn't really, the introduction of, Jason Blood and the Demon. Ooh.
Right. That was supposed to be a twist, right?
Yeah, and it's like, it's like, people who are buying this book, if you didn't know who the Demon character was, it would probably, you weren't buying this book anyway. It was, these prestige formats were a little bit more expensive than the traditional comic. You had to go to the specialty comic shop. And all that kind of combined with, if you don't know who, these characters were, you weren't going to buy this book.
Yeah, what were these, like $4? Or I'm trying to think.
I kind of remember them being, I think, upwards of $3.
Yeah.
Which is, it's now cheaper than the current comics, and with more pages and better paper quality, but it is a little bit more expensive, especially for the time. It was a lot more expensive. With that was supposedly a twist. The mystery person that Batman phone called was a twist.
Yeah, I'm glad he carries change in his pocket.
Yeah, that's why they're tubes. It's one of those things where it's like ching 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 ching.
Right.
Making the whole time coin belt little deals where they pop out quarters and nickels. Each of his tubes of utility belt are the right size for dimes and nickels.
Right.
But, that would have been considered a twist, but at the same point, it was kind of like, huh, okay.
Right. Well, and then, when we talk about Jon Stewart's big event, his arrogance, and then him going at it alone, the big twist was the surprise of the color of the bomb that they go after. It just, I don't know, it wasn't enough for me, especially on a reread. Maybe, I don't think it was enough on the initial read either, but especially on the reread when I'm older and wiser, it was like, I wish it had been something else.
Yeah, and more cynical.
Yeah. Book 2, Disaster, opens up with Orion and Superman. And again, Mignola's art is great. In the coloring, makes it even better. Steve Oliff makes this comic, yeah, makes this comic worth just looking at. Like even if you never read a word of it, just the art and the coloring is fantastic.
And it holds up to today's standards.
It does, big time.
Art coloring and all that, with the computers, Photoshop, and all the other, art programs out there for just specifically for coloring. It's like, my gosh, this still holds up really, really well.
Yeah, my funny thing on the first page, we have these Thanagarians coming off in the distance, and Orion and Superman are staring at them, and Orion points out that these Thanagarians are known for their belligerent attitudes. And I'm thinking, well, Orion's known to be the most belligerent person in the DC universe, really. So I'm not, why does he even care,
Yeah, how black is this kettle?
Right, exactly. And then, they talk about how the anti-life aspect, what kind of powers this thing could have. And of course, right away, Orion says, well, it's got to have mental control over these creatures, all of these Thanagarians. So they have to be controlled because they're coming at us, because they're flying at us. Why else would they fly at us? They got to be controlled. And of course they are. It was just it was an odd choice to point out when nothing has happened yet. Like they just got to the planet. It's a winged race of of natives. Of course they're flying at you. They didn't do anything else, and they're going to protect their planet whether they're controlled or not. It was just a weird thing to say. It was obviously plot point. Here, they're going to feed you this information about what the anti-life aspect can do. And I made a list throughout the entire series of the powers of the anti-life aspect and how bizarre of a choice that Jim Starlin made. And I'm just going to go through it now, even though we haven't reviewed more. The powers of the anti-life aspect. So he can mind control. He can turn into an ooze. He can create a pandemic. He can cause madness, because he does that on Ron, or Ran. I was going to say Ron, but he can weather control. And he can internet shop. That was one of his powers.
Well, that's why the life equation showed up on Cyber Monday.
Right. And his ultimate goal is to build this bomb, which he can make in any color he would like, to blow up the planet, which then blows up the universe.
Yes.
Right? He just makes a bomb. He has all these powers of this cosmos. Mind control, create a pandemic, cause madness. He can control the internet, and he just wants to make a bomb.
And the fact, it's the same bomb.
Right.
Everywhere.
Right.
On all the planets, it's the exact same bomb. Here's this creature, this entity, this power that shows up, and it's like, if there was more of it, it would cause the world to, universes to explode, but it only released aspects. And so these aspects, and the fact that they're so new to this universe,
right,
and a bomb enough to blow up whatever size planet.
Yeah.
That they were on.
Yeah, the chain reaction in the core of the planet, I believe. Yeah, so he mind controls the Thanagarians on the planet Xanshi, which is the red shirt planet. He creates a pandemic disease where he's killing all the natives. Like, why didn't he just mind control all the natives, or why didn't he just kill all the Thanagarians with the pandemic? Like, why? I'm trying to figure out why he chose. I mean, I understand it's the writer's choice, but it just seemed the cosmic entity was not very intelligent. And maybe that's to their advantage. Maybe that was what Starlin was going for. But a plot hole exists.
Yeah, and it's yeah. There's a lot. Like if you can control the entire populace of a planet, couldn't you have had them make multiple bombs?
Right. No, just one. That's all we needed is one. That's all you can make.
If we can take out this one, that's all we're gonna need to do. But yeah, the weather control thing was a little like, okay, so Thanagar only did one thing, and that was control the entire population of these Thanagarians, whatever they're called. But that's it. Did that, and that was it. But on the red shirt planet, not only, like you said, it created some sort of pestilence that was dooming everybody, but it additionally caused the weather control.
Right, yeah.
How, like, even then it was like, if you could cause pestilence, why wouldn't you just destroy the entire planet
Right.
and have other going and have that instead? But when you control the minds of one entire planet, and then pestilence would have been enough on another planet. But then they go, you know what? We're going to add one more layer, and that's weather control. And it's like, wow, this is totally random. Yet, they all make the same bomb, and away it goes.
Yeah. Convenient that all the parts on every world were the same. I mean, the bomb was identical.
Yeah. Didn't matter what, how backwards the planet might have been, how, this is a planet of pure magic, or this is a planet with no technology, or we don't have metal on our planet, yet here they are. They somehow were able to make it all. There was a little bit of a weirdness, and I don't know if this seems right to you, but Jon Stewart making an antidote that quickly seemed to be kind of like they had one thing to focus on. That was to find this thing and stop the anti-life equation from making its bomb and destroying various worlds. But apparently he's able to whip up a universal vaccine for the entire population, makes a simple one, and then just hands it off to somebody, like some almost stranger on the street, and says, okay, duplicate this. And it's like, but wouldn't that be made out of green energy? Green energy, not like some real chemical compounds? Or am I off on the use of how Green Lanterns work?
Well, I mean, the abilities of the ring change with the writers, and there was some earlier stories where the ring could do marvelous things like this. Yeah, I mean, it's like, some writers take it as a magic ring that can do anything. It's just the will of the character, that controls it can do. Later on, it would be kind of more limited to its abilities. It, of course, could still do energy constructs and stuff like that, but it wouldn't necessarily be able to instantly create this vaccine. Even though the ring's intelligent, it's never seems to me like it's super intelligent, like it could cure every disease that ever was brought to it. Why didn't John do that on Earth if he could do this?
Yeah, I mean, you got people dying of AIDS, you got people and it's like, well, then Green Lantern should have been able to save everybody. Just here you go, I've done it. In the current COVID, it's like Green Lantern's going to save us all.
Right.
It's like, well, that would have been nice. But then, yeah, it diminishes the usefulness of the individual Green Lantern. If the ring is that smart and is able to do everything on its own, then it's more about the ring just needs somebody to hold it, and the ring does it all. versus the person holding the ring does it, and they empower the ring based off of their own experiences. Because wasn't that like one of the key things about that Kyle Rayner Green Lantern was that he was a comic artist or an artist of some sort, and so that gave him a lot of imagination, and his ability or his imagination is what helped power the ring.
Yeah, definitely. And Jeff Johns, when he did his run of Green Lantern, he kind of defined each Earthling character and how they used the ring, and he did a really good job making each one kind of an individual. Like John was shown to be an architect, so he would make his constructs from the inside out, like how it was built with rivets and screws, and that's how his was. Where Kyle Rayner would be more imaginative, suits of armor, were just crazy Iron Man armor kind of thing, and ray guns and stuff like that. Where John's would be more symmetrical and everything made sense, and Hal's was more like, I'm gonna hit you with a bat, like it was simplified weapons. I mean, not all the time, but his was more ease of use rather than complicated, but yeah, practical. So Johns did a good job of that, and
Well, that's good.
yeah,
So,
his series was really good.
oh, yeah. One thing about this issue too that kind of bothered me, and to get back to some of the plot elements, is like there's these amazing things going on in all these different worlds except for Earth. Pestilence on the Redshirt planet. Total domination of the minds of all the inhabitants of another planet, and weather control back on the Redshirt. And then, madness, absolute unadulterated, like, pandemonium going on Adam Strange's planet. On Earth, not much. Nothing. And in fact, so much so that apparently Batman, the world's greatest detective, decides that the best use of his time, instead of trying to do anything, is be fashion designer for one of the mega best characters. Yeah. And it's like, so what? Why? Batman cannot have just one costume. It's like, I would assume that Alfred has already made a bunch of Batman suits or something. But to say, let's get you in a better set of outfits or whatever, it's like, it just seems like all these other ones were battling planet-wide catastrophes. And Batman is like going, let's do some clothing. Let's go clothing shopping. It's like, your outfit's just atrocious. Let's find something better. And it's just, he's like, okay. That seems a little weak. Again, everything's happening in massive scale on all the other planets. Earth, not much, nothing. Like, with the last episode was, everybody seemed to be paired off with, some really powerful, characters, like Light Ray, and able to manipulate the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Amazing power. Superman, obviously, his whole name tells you what he's about. He's Superman. And then the two weakest, no powers whatsoever. Let's pair you guys off and see what happens.
Yeah, and better yet, let's put them on Earth, where the whole, where we care the most about the planet, where the reader wants the Earth to survive, But I did like, while those two were doing a fashion show, Jim Starlin did include on Ran, Adam Strange. I mean, you almost have to, when you use that planet in your story, you have to include the character that's most famous on it. And I've always loved that character, so I'm glad he showed up. And they used him. I mean, they didn't use him very well, but I was glad he showed up. Yeah, then, you cut back and forth through the story as everyone's trying to find their anti-life aspect. People start finding the bombs, and like we said, it's always the same design. And during the Red Shirt planets, John Stewart, Green Lantern, decides he can do this on his own, puts John Jones, Martian Manhunter, off on, on a distant land or something. I don't know where he sent him to. And then finds the bomb, and of course the bomb has been painted yellow, which at that time the Green Lantern ring could not affect whatsoever. That's since been revised a bit, but back then anything yellow they couldn't affect at all. And of course that shocks John Stewart and the planet and everyone around it, and then the galaxy, or that part of the galaxy anyway, is destroyed. Luckily, our main characters survive.
The ring somehow manages, even though it blows the planet up and people are vaporized, Martian Manhunter's in his little bubble. The bubble bursts, but clearly leaving him exposed. But then the very next page, it has him still protected, but instead of a convenient bubble, it's a tight woven film around it. It's like, wait, wasn't it? What's the difference?
Right.
Yeah. You took the drama away by saying, like, he's no longer protected, but he's always protected. So it was a cool art when the green, shards exploded around him, instantly nullified by the very next panel where he's still back wrapped up in green.
Beautiful art. Planet exploded. Wonderful choices for panels. Mignola. I mean, he should be doing big fights, monsters, planets exploding, and maybe that isn't even him. Maybe it's Steve Oliff. But again, the art is worth looking at, even though the story has some plot holes.
Well, yeah, it's definitely a case of elevating the story beyond what it's it can be rightly justified by saying it's like. Yeah, if you were to just anybody else's art with the story, this would have been completely forgotten. Yeah, but with Mignola's artwork, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, this still has some value.
Right.
Now I'm going to throw one bit of question at you. Did you find it in not just like I love the fact that Martian Manhunter, out of everybody, is the one character who's got the most random assortment of powers. Did you notice one flaw, at least in the whole situation? It kind of goes back, the nerd superhero question of can Wolverine's claws, which are unbreakable, razor sharp, cut through Captain America's shield, which is made out of the same thing? It's like whose power can override the other person's power. But one of the things that kind of confused me is that Martian Manhunter can become intangible, right? He can pretty much drift through anything, float through solid objects, in and out. Why did he get trapped in a bubble?
In theory, maybe the energy bubble, he couldn't do that. I don't know. But in theory, he should have been able to go through anything. It's kind of like the Vision, I mean, the other thing is he's at this time especially, he's vulnerable to flame and fire. And I wonder how he survived this big giant fireball in the face, but maybe, the ring protected him, I guess.
Well, yeah, they say that the ring protected him, but wasn't it the fact that it wasn't like, it was his version of kryptonite for certain, but it also created like a huge amount of fear. I mean, he was like deadly afraid of fire as well as being vulnerable to it. And it just seems like, yeah, you were literally like the bulk of the planet got flung into it, the sun, yet there's little asteroid remnants here or there. And Martian Manhunter just is like, yeah, that was cool. He's been like down on your knees weeping in a fetal position.
Should have,
but yeah, it was just like, one of the core tenets, and one of the things that make the DC universe all the more unique is the fact that a lot of them have core limitations that almost make no sense. The kryptonites, the yellow, the fire, the irrational need to give a riddle or say a joke or whatever. These are things that only exist in the DC universe. They were never really adopted by any other publisher. And it's like, what made Martian Manhunter as powerful as he was, there was one little thing that stopped him, and that was fire. And to have a whole, like you said, a whole planet burst into flames, and he's like, No big deal. I'm cool. I recovered. I was
Neat.
like, oh, well, I kind of missed one of the key components of the character.
And issue 3 is kind of the oddball. Like, nothing really happens in issue 3. I mean, it does and it doesn't. Like, the art's still very pretty, but it's really like the placeholder for issue 4. The heroes are trying to get, to the bomb. They're discovering exactly what the aspect can do. Some great Mignola scenes with Superman. He's always he's in shadow. You don't really have to draw his face, and he fights this giant robot. Which another power this aspect has is he can build a giant robot, but just one giant robot. And then Superman dukes it out with a giant robot. I mean, what else does an issue need other than that? For me, that was a great fight.
Yeah. One of the things that I thought was an interesting take, again, visually speaking, fully agree. Superman's mostly in shadow. I mean, it's just like I'm going to make a silhouette of this hero throughout almost the entire issue. It's purely in silhouette. But the heat vision, I thought that was an interesting approach where, like Todd McFarlane took Michael Golden's approach to Spider-Man's webs, where all of a sudden there's more like this liquidy, globular kind of quality, where it had all the little spinny little offshoots. But instead, he took heat vision and basically said, yeah, this is heat vision, not a laser, which most artists still represent it as being a laser. Like his eyes glow red, but it just shoots like a perfect beam right out. Here, Superman burns the bomb, and with his heat vision, and as the heat emits from his eyes, then it becomes more combustible, and it becomes kind of that wild nature of flame that flickers here or there, the flashes of flame all over. And I thought that was a pretty interesting take on kind of the classic power he's had all this time, but for some reason no one really represents it as being truly heat that causes fire.
Right, yeah, good point. And great to look at art-wise.
Yeah, and it gives it a separation from any other, because like he's got a Rolodex of super eyeballs. It's like, oh, gotta pull up this one, whoop, whoop, and pop in my X-ray contacts, or pull in my telescopic, pull in my microscopic vision, all of that stuff. But this one was like heat vision, and it's like, oh yeah, this is something that at least he approached it differently, because he does use X-ray vision previous when he discovered this bomb, and he looks at the floor and it's like ghosted out again. One of the main, you could not have done that prior to computer coloring and computer separations and printing, where it was ghosted back to kind of help represent the element of it being X-ray vision. He looks through the floor and then you can kind of see the ghosted version of that bomb just existing there.
Yeah, good stuff. And of course we get Light Ray and Starfire and their encounter with the bomb. The aspect is a goo, an oily goo that is flammable, and Light Ray didn't realize it, and then Starfire did, and of course she sets it on fire and it defeats the aspect. Is that basically what happened?
I read it. Is that I guess her hair causes jet propulsion. I can't remember how. I knew whenever they drew her that when she took off flying, it was always like her hair that would just kind of give that sense. But I didn't realize that it was really her hair that shot flame out and caused the gasoline gelatin to go all napalm.
Right.
And I wasn't a Teen Titans fan, so I didn't know if that's really the case or if that was just an aesthetic that, whenever she flew, she would fly so fast that her hair, which she always had copious amounts of, would look as if it were just going on forever. But I guess in this particular interpretation, she can't fly, her hair can, and it's attached to her head.
Yeah, Marv Wolfman is cringing at that comment, I'm sure.
I think he just passed, didn't he?
No, he didn't.
Oh, who might think? Denny O'Neil. He passed away, didn't he?
He did a while ago.
For some reason.
No, he's still alive. I follow him on Facebook, so I know. We're friends.
Yeah, classic.
Yeah, right.
I had one encounter with Marv Wolfman at San Diego Comic-Con, and I feel kind of bad about it, but at the same point, he looked at me as if I had superpowers. So I'm at Comic-Con, somebody comes by our booth that we had at the show, and they just left a comic on the counter. And I kept our counters, our booth space as clean as possible. And so I grabbed that comic and I just put it off to the side. Well, it happened to be a 10th Muse comic that Marv Wolfman happened to have written. Later that same day, maybe within like an hour and a half of me setting that comic to the side, Marv Wolfman, of all people, shows up at our booth and starts looking at the various products that I worked on and stuff we had available. And I look at him, it's like, hey, aren't you Marv Wolfman? He goes, yeah, I am. It's like, hey, would you mind signing something? And I literally just turn around, grab that comic, which just was sitting out there, and I lay it on the table, and he looks at me like, you had this comic here just laying out, waiting for him to just show up, not knowing, it wasn't like we were scheduled to have him there or anything. And it's just like, hey, and he looked at me like, how did you know I was coming? It was just like, I almost was like, yes, I, have psychic abilities. I have, one of the heroes that you write about. But it was just such a weird, like, if somebody didn't happen to just leave a comic on the counter, and that comic hadn't have been written by Marv Wolfman, and then within moments he shows up.
I saw it in my dreams.
Hey, no kidding. It's like, it was destined to happen. You are my density.
Pretty cool.
One thing, and I don't know, this is a little bit of an issue I had too, was the lettering in this issue was very consistent, except for when Light Ray yells Corey's name at the bomb. So, I mean, the lettering in this thing is very consistent. Everything about it is just, but the previous page has like Superman saying wrong and a huge font, letters overlapping. Clearly, when Superman was, enraged by the sheer destructiveness of Orion, he yells out wrong, and it's colored font. It's got the gradation from dark orange to the yellow. He's yelled it out. But then you go to the next page, and clearly, Light Ray's yelling out for Corey, trying to get her attention, nothing. But then the very next page, it's like Corey, and it's using a very, like, Helvetica font. It's the only time in this entire book that font is used, and it was very jarring. It almost looked like this was somebody else. It was like, you spelled the name wrong.
Right. Yeah, it does look like an editorial came in and said something, like whatever was in that balloon, they said, nope, that's not what he's going to say here. Yeah. Because he uses like you said, he uses Corey twice on the previous page, and it's all the same font, the same looking, and then you go to the next page and it's like rigid and just, obviously something typed out, and then they pasted it on there.
And I wonder if it was like, he said, Carrie, the Mark Hamill Star Wars conspiracy of, he lands after destroying the Death Star, and he yells out, Carrie, instead of Leia.
Right, yeah.
And they realize he's not supposed to say Carrie, her name is Corey. Fix it. You guys are good. I trust you can do it. And that's where this, it's like, hey, my name is Light Ray, and my voice is like this. And then it's like, Corey.
Yeah, even everything else on that page is the same font except that word balloon. I never noticed that till you said that. That's pretty weird. It wasn't jarring for me, but it was jarring for you. You font snob.
Lettering was still done by hand.
Oh yeah.
Legitimate letterer. But this seems like it was probably like one of those like Letraset words where they just kind of like, had it, like you said, editorial. He must have said something different, or the word wasn't right. He dropped the F-bomb, and they're like, ooh, you can't have the F-bomb in this So we're gonna have him say something else, like, "Oh, how about he says her name again for like the third or fourth time?" Like, "Oh yeah, okay, that'll work. Can you just make that happen?" Yep. And instead of handwriting it, they just said, "Well, let's just grab these letters that we can, burnish down onto this thing." And it's like, oof.
Yeah, a lot of these sound effects and stuff like that remind me of Simonson's run on Thor and stuff like that. Like he would like on
Yeah.
the just the big huge letters and I don't know if we ever said who lettered this, but they did a good job too. I don't think it was Simonson, was it?
No, no, but Howard Chaykin, also would do this as well. I can't remember who did it first, but I knew that Chaykin, I believe, was a protege for a while of Walt Simonson.
Oh,
So,
I didn't know that.
Simonson was both. I think her name is Louise Simonson, and Walt. They helped mentor, nurture so many artists over the years, and Chaykin was one of them. But if you look at Chaykin's American flag, he used a lot of that same kind of approach with the lettering of. In fact, I think his, if you remember, American flag, he actually had that song that he would repeat whenever they shot the guns. So, like when they shot, it would say "Papa, Papa," and then as the blast would go, it would say "Ooh," and then it hit and it would say "Mau Mau." So it was like "Papa, Papa, moo, ooh, Mau Mau, Papa, ooh, Mau Mau." That song was in the lettering of when American flag would shoot stuff.
I didn't know that. That's really strange and funny.
Yeah, yeah, and I was like, and why? No idea. I don't know if it was like an Easter egg before there was like Easter eggs or what. But it was just like such a weird thing, and I just remember that. But yeah, there's clearly references, inspiration from Simonson's use of type of font approach or word, and having the sound effect be a graphic on its own. Very, very nice. But yeah, like you said, they don't really give the credits to, and I'm not seeing.
It's on the first page. It's John Workman, who I don't recognize, but probably did 1,000 things I didn't recognize. But yeah, okay. Then Ron is saved because of some petroleum jelly ignition, and my wife's looking at me funny now. Um, but right, she looks at me funny anyway. But so that planet is saved, as if we thought the planet Ron would blow up in this story. But the aspect gets away because we never talked about the devices Darkseid created to capture these, but they were really flimsy metal objects which would break even if you looked at them wrong. And of course, most of them did except Superman's. So of course the aspect got away, but thanks Darkseid.
Yeah, and you almost wondered, was that intentional or what? But yeah, they just basically, um, yeah, they were never meant to last very long anyway. Yeah, they just, it was a kind of a false hope, and I always kind of looked at, obviously, the equivalent character, the one that was a knockoff of this dark side, which is Thanos, was infatuated with death and destruction and just causing all that to happen. And it's like here, I kind of always felt like Darkseid would also be kind of a proponent for wanton destruction and so forth. But it's kind of like, was he intentionally making these things flimsy, knowing that it's like, this is never going to work, and then I'll lure out the anti-life equation, and then I'll be able to, deal with it.
I'll make them all into petroleum jelly, and then I will ignite them.
Yeah. Again, it's a case of extremely convenient ability. Like, my hair catches on fire, and you happen to be very flammable. Good thing I was the one who was sent to this planet. And then, yeah, like you said, issue 3 was kind of a throwaway issue. It was kind of like, okay, we have to kind of wrap up a few things. We kind of have to give the heroes something to kind of work with. They lost one, they won one. And they lost, they won another one, but at a cost of destruction of so many Thanagarians, which I would have liked to have seen, like if there was ever another, like the Thanagar Apocalypse War or something like that, where it's like, Orion destroyed this. Guess what? Thanagar's calling it up. Calling in favors to destroy the retaliation.
Right. Those Thanagarians get around though. They've been in so many stories. They're just getting around to it. They've been busy. Book 4 is called Death, so right away you got to be pretty psyched about that.
Yeah, and it was a little bit of a misleading thing because you're thinking like, okay, is it the death of the universes? Is it finally the end of it all is going to kick in, or is it just what was the death that they were referencing on the cover?
Now, one thing Mignola did, and he did it well, but I thought maybe was a little overdone, was the countdown to 1 panels. There was a number of them in issue 3, and issue 4 starts out, and we just get a countdown over and over again. I love panels that pass time, and you can tell a second goes by. It's great art, but it was really repetitive after 2 pages of it.
Yeah, I don't think Keith or Sutherland would even have. I think he would have issues with seeing the countdown.
Right. It's like, I get it. It's counting down. Move on. But it was well done. Again, the art is great.
Yeah, but a lot of just the same art. I always love like when a panel like that gets repeated. I look to see like, is this individually inked, or is it just a reproduction of that same panel over and over and over again? And you can kind of see like, okay, look at the squiggles around the sphere on the left, and is it the same break point, like where the ink kind of stops at a point? It's like, yep. So it's just reproduction. So like he drew it once, and they inked it, and then they just copied it over and over again, and then just threw in different letters.
Right. So I mean, it was a real easy page for him to do.
Yeah. So I kind of, especially had that one where it was nothing but those, and then when it wasn't that same image repeated over again, it was just a jet black page.
Yeah, with letters. Yeah. Yep.
One thing that kind of like it just dawned on me, but how prevalent was the use of like black edge pages, meaning that almost the bulk of this book, in this whole series, the artwork goes all the way out to the edges. Usually, when you think about classic comics, there was always a white gutter that went around every page because they couldn't like register the print to be perfectly within the page, so they couldn't go full bleed. But this one, it's like not only is there a lot of pages of full bleed, but the pages are like all the gutters are black.
Right, and I'm sure that's easy nowadays with digital art. I'm sure they could do that no problem in 3 seconds. But yeah, back then, that's a good point. Did someone actually go in and ink the edges?
Yeah, they just filled the whole thing with black. It's like, huh. And even at that time, this was still kind of like the classic eras of the gutters being white and not going all the way to the edge. I think it was part of it being this prestige format. It's like, huh, okay. That they could get away with it because it was that perfect bound, format for the comic. So they didn't have to worry about creep or any of these other things that would cause their art to shift from page to page and their spreads or anything like that. But yeah, this was just something that just dawned on me. It's like, wow, there was a lot of black in this comic.
And the book opens up with the countdown, and there's a great fight scene with Batman and Forager. Finally, Batman and Forager try to take out their villain, and it is a great fight scene. I mean, Mignola and monsters go hand in hand, and his Batman's great too. So, I have nothing bad to say about his technique and style. It's a great little. I wish the whole book was like that, maybe.
And this was, kind of ambitious because, like, you look at what Mignola has done since. It's like, his stories, while epic, were still pretty much down to a couple of characters. It was like, Hellboy and his, PBRD, but they weren't like, I don't know, for some reason this just seems like a lot of flashy colored characters, and not necessarily what you think of when you think of Mignola today. One thing that did bother me, and I don't know, this seemed a little weird about the character or the story as a whole, was clearly the creature that Batman is fighting is, empowered by the aspect, brought it back to life. It's got the drippy, oozy gore of its cored out gut from issue 1 when Batman blasted right through it. So part 1 of the issue that I have is like, how is the spine still intact when the rest of it is completely bored through?
You don't need no spine.
Yeah, but it's like, every bit of the creature's, aspect, it blasted a hole clean through it. But dead center, perfectly intact, is the creature's spine. But more of the issue that I had was like, okay, so this anti-life equation can bring a dead entity back to life. But the police officer that he brought back to life didn't really get brought back to life. It was a robot. So I don't get it. It's like you can bring back this creature to life, even though it's been completely destroyed. But the police officer, why did it have to be a robot?
Yeah, Joe Besters, the police officer. I've read this yesterday again, and I still never caught that he was a robot.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not sure why, because it says right there, a robot. I must have dozed off on that part or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, you reanimated a dead being, and then here it's like same dead being, but this time you decided, well, let's just change it up a little bit. I'm going to make this one a robot.
Well, again, the aspect can only do one thing. He can only make one bomb. He can only animate one of the creatures. He can't do more than one thing. That multitasking is not in his forte.
Yeah, it's like the Legion of Superheroes, that Superman knockoff character that can only have one of Superman's powers at a time.
I believe that's Ultra Boy.
Yes, I knew you'd know. If anybody on the planet would know, Ultra Boy. Yeah, it's like, I can only activate one of Superman's powers at a time. I've got them all, but I can only do one at a time. It's like I can only reanimate, and once I've done that, I can't reuse that ability. So maybe that's one of the things that was just not really referenced here, is that the anti-life equation can only do one thing, and then once it's done that thing, it can't do it anywhere else at any other time. So it's like, I can make pestilence, but I can't make pestilence everywhere. I can control the minds of all these beings, but I can't control the minds. I've done that once, and I've used up that ability to do that power. And now I have to use some other power somewhere in order to to take over this universe.
Yeah, well, Ultra Boy, or Jonah, as I call him, he's from the planet Rimbor, and he was swallowed by a space whale, and that's how he got his powers. So maybe the aspect was also swallowed by a space whale.
Oh yeah, those guys. I've seen those space whales.
Let me put my glasses up.
Yeah. And they just they're really known with all just random things.
Right, those darn space whales.
But yeah, the other aspect, and I don't know. I mean, this wasn't a comic code, so they clearly showed blood, they showed gore, they showed whatever. But I kept thinking, like, maybe they wanted to keep the innocence of Forager, and that's why they made it into a robot.
Oh yeah, like he didn't choose to kill this person.
Oh, it's a robot, so it keeps him kind of the innocent and.
It didn't, like the Comic Code Authority. I mean, they'd already killed the police officer in issue 1 and showed it. So I'm sure they didn't care about the code now on issue 4 that he killed the person.
It just seems odd. It's like, okay, a robot. Okay. And again, it goes back to like, okay, you can make a robot. Why did you make it look like the dead police officer? Because no one would care what this robot looked like. It wasn't like this robot was going around shopping and it's like, oh, good, you're that police officer. I'll let you go ahead and do some shopping.
Well, the aspect could internet browse, so I mean, he didn't need the robot. Or maybe the robot was doing all the work. I don't know.
But, oh well. I mean, this is kind of getting down into the granular of like.
That's what we do. But of course, Batman has the solar collector thing, and it breaks. The first chance he pulls it out of his cape, and you wonder why they even carried that thing, or why there was only one for each group.
Yeah.
But plot point. The writer decided. I know that's the answer, but you wonder why in the DC universe, or why Darkseid only made 4 and then gave one to each group.
It was also a terribly convenient piece of equipment. It's like, we don't know what this thing is, never seen it before, have no real understanding of its true nature, or we just know it's running around, and I have the perfect device to contain it.
Yeah, right. And the most evil person in the world gave it to them. Like, oh, that can't end well. This is a good idea. And then Darkseid and the Demon are in the aspect world, the anti-life world, and they get their butt kicked. And meanwhile, Forager and Batman are fighting for their life and for the life of the Milky Way galaxy. And everyone else is on New Genesis having tea and arguing over, why Jon Stewart is a rotten person for having miscalculated and killed millions of people. And everybody else is just like, well, I know Batman is struggling fighting this aspect, but Earth is big. We can't even go there and go look for him. So why bother? We'll just stay here where it's safe in case he fails.
It's definitely not taking into account the snowball effect of like, okay, you guys have done your job, but we can resend you guys out. Superman, Martian Manhunter, all you guys, even if Jon Stewart is in mourning or second guessing his abilities. Yeah, like to your point, they're just kind of loafing around, just kicking back.
Yeah, there's nothing we can do. Really?
Yeah. The part that you guys are all really defending most all the time is the one that still has an aspect on it. You want to go and see if you can do anything? Give it a little bit of help?
Nah, we did our part, right? We didn't get a payphone call or anything like that, so... Speaking of payphone, Dr. Fate shows up. Yeah, finally, Dr. Fate shows up at the last issue. I mean, he was roaming around earlier, but of course, Dr. Fate's one of my favorite characters, so I appreciated Mignola's art style on him. He didn't do a whole lot. I mean, he did. He was like the, Deus Machina kind of, hey, I'm gonna solve all your problems because I showed up because Batman gave me a call. And luckily, I'm here because you wouldn't have defeated this guy otherwise.
Obi-Wan, go into the Star Wars parlance, he felt a disturbance in the Force, a planet blowing up, a singular planet blowing up. That was the Force. The basic Sorcerer Supreme of the DC universe didn't notice a planet going poof, or some sort of disturbance of like, oh crap, these anti-life equation. Nope, didn't sense it at all. It took a phone call to bring him to an awareness of what's going on. And it's like, oh. So not that cosmic of a being, like the traditional term of cosmic awareness.
Yeah. His helmet was out of juice. He had it plugged in, so.
Yeah, exactly. He was using it as a nightlight, and it just drained it.
Right.
The use of the characters to kind of create this like 5-pointed star of power, did that seem a little contrived?
Yeah, not a little. It seemed a lot contrived. And then when he's describing, I'm using the power of Highfather and Orion because they're connected to the source, and Darkseid's connected to the anti-life equation, and the demon who he has all these magical sorceral things that I don't understand. And it's like, okay, sure, where did that come from? I mean, it's true, but there was no foreshadowing of all this super energy that he had to use on the pentagram to fight the aspect, Yeah,
and it just seems a little bit like, yeah. And the arrangement of the characters also seemed a little weird, because it's like I would have put Darkseid and Highfather on opposite sides, like they're equals because that's kind of what they are in the DC universe. And then put the other two subordinate type characters below. Kind of like but it just seemed like, ooh, Orion was like the biggest stretch to put him into.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think he's got any sort of mystical abilities other than being like the son of Darkseid.
Yeah, he's just a jerk.
It's like, okay, we're tapping into your curmudgeon ability.
Right. Yeah, I agree with the Highfather. He should have been on the other side. I wish DC would give Highfather the opposite power of Darkseid. Like Darkseid would be one side and Highfather. I don't think he's as powerful. I really don't know the power level of Highfather, but I don't think he's even close to Darkseid. So I'm not sure they use him the way they should.
Yeah, and that's for the best. I mean, you kind of want your villains to be really a threat. If they're on par with you, then it's like, man, it kind of diminishes the threat factor. I mean, it's like the best of the Doctor Doom stories are when Doctor Doom is seen as being, he's got a whole country at his disposal. He could really unleash some things if he wanted to. And then his intellectually, he's more, he's probably as smart, if not, in his own way, smarter than Reed Richards. And then the same with, he's even got some mystical abilities. So not only has he got the technological know-how, he's got mystical. And it's like, holy crap, he really becomes a threat. But if you're to say that, yeah, he's basically on par with this guy, then it's like, kind of takes him down a notch. So having Darkseid being a lot more powerful than Highfather gives it a little bit more importance. Yeah, they don't really tap into any of the things. Cause like Darkseid just makes gadgets in this whole series. He did punch Superman and send him flying in the first issue.
Oh yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah, but beyond that, he just is like Q from James Bond. Just making gadgets, making something that's going to open up the rift between our world and the anti-life world. And I'm going to make these little flashlights so you can suck up the anti-life equation aspects. And I'm going to make another gizmo to transport you guys. And it just seems like you just make gadgets. You're not really much in the way of your own power. Like, where's his Omega beams? Where's his, nothing. It's kind of just make stuff.
He saves his energy for fighting the Aspect. That's what it is. But he fights the Aspect. Fate kind of saves the day. And they all go back to New Genesis, all happy. Except the fight's still going on Earth, and they're just like, whatever, we're going to have a party over here. And Batman and Forager fight. The fight continues. It's really cool. Forager sacrifices himself, and he dies, saving the universe.
Again, something of consequence. A red shirt planet blowing up didn't have the impact, but having that character, die actually had a bit of like they spent a few issues trying to build the character up. And I thought that was well done. It felt as if his sacrifice had some meaning.
Yeah, it was the one character I thought they did really well, and you wanted to see more of, and so of course they kill him, which is kind of what you want. You want to feel the loss, like you said.
Yeah, there's consequence to this whole thing. There wasn't a way for them all to kind of, something. It couldn't have gone smoothly for everybody.
And then it cuts to John Stewart, and here's my other gripe of this issue. He's obviously distraught. He's just killed 1 billion people because of his mistake. So he sends his Green Lantern ring off into space. But before he does that, he uses the Green Lantern ring to grab a yellow gun off the shelf. But his ring can't handle yellow. He shouldn't be able to grab it, right? Or am I misunderstanding how that works? Like, he couldn't stop the yellow bomb, so why can he grab a yellow gun? But I guess, it's saying he's going to use a yellow gun, because apparently the Green Lantern ring wouldn't save him then, because the blast is going to be yellow too, because of course the gun's yellow. So of course the blast should be yellow too, right? Is that the logic behind that?
Whatever color your gun is the color the ray comes out.
Right. But he doesn't do it, of course.
Again, another case of, is this the right use of Martian Manhunter's abilities? Martian Manhunter being just a jack of all trades with a random assortment of powers, one of them being mind reading. He have just simply read John Stewart's mind and found that he was second guessing his suicidal tendency here and realized that, okay, yeah, he wasn't going to kill himself after all, and then walked away. But this whole well, are you going to do it? And trying to push him, and it's like,
should have said, "Say it again, John. Maybe next time I'll believe it."
yes. And what the other thing was is I'm going to send my ring, all the way to the other side of the universe. 20 light years, that ought to be far enough. He says it all out, and panel after panel after panel, and get really contemplating. So he sent the thing 20 light years, and then the moment he says ring, it's right back.
Right, it's that fast.
That fast. So it's like, if it was that fast, if literally him saying ring, and it's right there. Apparently sending that thing 20 light years out was not apparently far enough. But this is the same guy who was able to use the same ring to generate an anti-pandemic serum using that ring.
And save Martian Manhunter and him from a galaxy-destroying explosion. That ring is powerful.
Yeah. So apparently, if he knew he could do all this, why didn't he, send it 9 million light years away, and then that would have been enough. But apparently 20 light years is not, that's like a second. That's right. So clearly the entire time he was not anticipating using this ring.
So the universe is saved. Darkseid is semi-defeated because he didn't get all the aspects powers. And only 1 billion people died and not 20 billion.
Yeah, but there's a couple of plot holes that I still don't quite get. Something obviously they were intending to use for future story hooks for these characters on the road. One of them being that Darkseid made off with the one or two, but the only one that had captured an aspect in the flashlight.
True, yeah.
He made up with that. And it's like, okay. So theoretically, he was going to do. The other thing is, the aspect made a run for it on Ran, but they never come back or explain, is he making a bomb on another planet? Because that's the same aspect, and that's what the aspect does, is make bombs. And that one took off, and they never caught it.
Well, it shows up again later in either that same issue or the next one when they are page back for it. But when Darkseid and the Demon are in the other universe, the aspect. Where is it? Issue 4.
Yeah, I see. It's on page.
Yeah, it shows up again as a.
Okay, yep. By the stars. It's one of the anti-life.
Yeah. Yeah. So apparently that covered that aspect. No pun intended.
Because to me, I was looking at that not necessarily that. Because I was looking at it as being he shot it out, because if you look at the top of that page, there's the anti-life aspect itself, and it made the little glowing dot right underneath what looks like a hand, and was sending that tendril out to chase Darkseid, follow them from the anti-life world into these other universes. So I was looking at it as if that was the anti-life equation being sending yet another aspect out.
Yeah.
So I was looking at it that way, as opposed to it being uh-oh, here's this one. But now that you mention it, I can see that it was there's one coming from one side and another coming from the other side, and that's kind of what was happening.
Yeah, I didn't catch that the guy was a robot, but I did catch that the aspect on one little panel shows back up again.
Yes. Mystery solved.
That's right.
decades later.
And this is why I love comics, is because, you can catch all this stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like we age, and the reason why we age is so that we can understand these little subtleties.
Right. So, overall feeling on this series, Cosmic Odyssey, 4 issues.
Yeah, kind of sold a bill of goods when it comes to Cosmic and the Odyssey, but the artwork is still, I mean, from the coloring to the inking to the art itself, the illustration, still phenomenal. Story, it's an entertaining story, but not one that was like cosmic-y, where I felt like this took the pillars of heaven. It just was like, yeah, yep, bad things were about to happen. The good guys stopped it from happening, and it had no lingering effects on the DC universe as a whole.
Right. Other than Jon Stewart, I don't recall anything ever affecting anybody ever again from this series. But I totally agree with you that visually this book is wonderful, holds up. Like, this is a reread for both of us from it. And while the story certainly isn't the greatest, and if you just ignore the plot holes, it's entertaining. But the art is just gorgeous, and it's well worth looking at, even if you don't read it.
And there is still a lot, that it holds up in a lot of different ways. And but like I said earlier, it feels as if this was really a strong attempt to try to bring the New Gods back into the limelight for DC Comics. And they did. They had that follow-up series, the New Gods series. And did Jim Starlin write that series as well? But with Paris Collins, I think, did the art.
I think it was Cullens, but I'm not sure if Starlin actually wrote it. I'm not sure. I think it was, I'm pulling this, Dave Evanier or something like that. I think he did some of it, but I didn't look it up or anything like that, so I may be totally wrong on that.
So, yeah, there was just a lot of things where it worked, and a lot of things that just were like, could have been better.
Right.
Would have been nice. And it's tough to work on a huge multi-team, like, to your point you were mentioning earlier with, Crisis. That involved every character throughout the entire DC universe. And that was a massive undertaking. And it's tough to kind of keep a tight woven story when you have that many characters. So you kind of have to pick and choose, but when they did pick and choose, these were the characters that they picked.
Right.
Hal Jordan versus Jon Stewart.
Yeah, I don't mind Jon Stewart. He's actually one of my favorite Green Lanterns. I mean, I love Hal, but Jon Stewart was fine. I'm not sure about Starfire and
then the worst is the fact that Metron, they kind of left that character linger basically Stephen Hawking style, where he's just comatose or catatonic in his chair.
Yeah, he doesn't show up again, does he?
They just kind of left him where he was at. It's like, good enough.
I'm not sure what you can do with a character that's supposed to know everything other than have him be in a coma after finding out too much of something. It's just, there's only so much characterization you can do. It's probably a frequent characterization of him where he just overwhelmed and warns the heroes to be on the lookout and then passes out or something.
And that gives you that false sense of like, holy crap, this is going to be huge if it overwhelmed him.
Yeah, I'm curious what Jack Kirby did with them. I'm gonna have to do some research on the New Gods, and that's our review for Cosmic Odyssey, the 4-issue miniseries. Are you ready for some Cosmic Odyssey trivia? Let's go to that next segment. Well, we'll see whose questions are dumber. And there'll be some like intro music, something like that, or just that. Yeah. But I don't know how you want to do this. I have 6 questions for you on Cosmic Odyssey trivia.
you know, kind of scatter my dumb ideas amongst yours.
Great. Maybe we'll even have the same question. Okay, my first question for Cosmic Odyssey. What is Starfire's real name?
Yeah. Hey, we did discuss that one. Apparently, she only has, or if you by reading this book alone, only one part of a name. That's Corey.
Okay, that is
Last
partial.
name.
I mean, I'll give you a partial credit because that is the only thing you could have picked up from this series. But her last name, which is of course not real because she's alien, her name is Corey Anders. So Corey Anders. And I think, now that I think about it, that is her real name on Tamaran or wherever she's from. And they just kind of split it in half. And that's my question one.
Okay. Here's mine for you. I'll start off with the worst of them all. Ready? What kind of job would you like to have on Thanagar that would cause you to have the least amount of work to do?
Well, it wouldn't be wing repair or nth metal, fixer. It wouldn't be that. Job I would like to least have. Oh, most have. Well, it also wouldn't be funeral, um, because there's a lot of dead people there. That's a great question, and I am drawing a blank on what job would be the least. I'm thinking of all the ones that wouldn't.
I'd written down fashion design.
That's true, because there is only one design.
For all of them.
Right. That
It's like, oh, what are you wearing this summer? Oh, the same thing we all are wearing this summer.
twinsies.
Yeah, exactly. Again, you wear the same outfit I wore? Oh, how embarrassing.
Okay, you got me on that one. All right, you got a .5 point, and I have 0. Okay, here's my number 2 question. Name 4 other Earth Green Lanterns besides John Stewart.
Okay, I'll go through the ones that I could answer. Hal Jordan,
Okay.
Guy Gardner,
Yep.
Kyle Rayner, because I brought him up earlier.
Yep. You only need one more, and I cheated because the only other one I can think of was introduced recently.
Yeah, because I know that there's like some girl that is now got that dopey haircut where it's like shaved on the side of the head, but is she from Earth?
She is from Earth.
So there's that girl, but then, Alan Scott.
You're right. That is another one. Well done. I didn't think you'd get Alan Scott.
Yeah, cause I was thinking of like the Silver Age on Green Lanterns, and I was like, oh wait, yeah, there's the Golden Age Green Lantern, so kind of like saved by somebody that was completely not really a Green Lantern, but had a weakness to wood apparently.
Correct. I would also accept Jessica Cruz.
What isn't there like a new black guy that is a Green Lantern that's got kind of the like he wears a mask over his face?
Yeah, there's Simon Baz. I'm not positive he's an Earthling, but I don't know.
And what was that girl from like Jade or something like that from Infinity Inc.?
Yep, that's Alan Scott's daughter. Not technically a Green Lantern, although I think she did have a ring at one time. Her power is natural. She has a birthmark on her finger, and it's energized with emerald energy. Sorry, I couldn't say that with a straight face.
Yeah, it's like we're not infringing on one of our own characters, but we're getting really close.
Right.
Okay, next question for you.
Yep.
What is the name of the city that they all arrive at when the Earth people make it to New Genesis?
The city on New Genesis? And I'm trying not to look. I thought it was just New Genesis. Is it?
It threw me off as well.
Is it not? Because that's the city you're talking about, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So
That
apparently New Genesis is the name of the entire place.
that's a
But
good
this
question. I don't know. That's a great question.
Supertown.
Oh yeah, it is Supertown, isn't it? Darn it.
Classic Kirby. It's
Yeah.
like you have this cosmic, I mean, legitimately cosmic, these, far flung concepts, these lofty ideals, these amazing characters. Light Ray, Orion, Darkseid, Highfather. And let's all gather at Supertown!
Supertown. Yeah, once you said that, it's like, oh yeah, that's what it is. But good question. All right, question 3. Adam Strange travels back and forth to Ron using what?
Like a nega ray or something like that? Or a nega beam or
It is a beam.
beta beam?
Close. It's the Zeta beam.
I'd gone through my entire Greek alphabet.
Right. You would have got eventually Greek alphabet. Gamma beam.
Okay, so I don't know how we're faring as far as a question
Well.
versus the answer. Here's your next one.
You're doing better than me.
Highfather talks about the origins of the anti-life equation, and that there were basically two species that predated New Genesis and Apocalypse. What was the name of those species?
I'm thinking the good guys and the bad guys.
You're probably. I'll have to give it to you because that was kind of a trick question. They never named them.
They were the good people.
Yeah, exactly. It's like one was we're legitimately looking back at this copy. It just says the ancient records show that the civilization finally became contact with a non-human alien race. That was it.
It was the descendants of New Genesis and the descendants of Apocalypse.
Yeah, it was basically that was they blew up the planet, and out of that planet formed New Genesis and Apocalypse. But after eons later, by the precursor, they said, yep, a human-like race and a non-human-like race, no names. Didn't want to think about it that much, and so they just didn't give them names.
Nice. All right, that was your trick question. Here's my question 4. How many times does Orion get punched out by fellow heroes, and by who?
Oh man, I'm gonna go out and say twice, 'cause I know that Superman punches him and he says "Wrong," and then Batman punches him when Orion discounts the death and sacrifice of Ford.
You are correct. Twice.
Yes.
Nobody likes Orion. He gets punched out by Earthlings all the time.
So, okay, that was the. I wouldn't say I kind of ruined one of them, but
But you ruined one of them.
yeah. So I had this question. I'll ask the question because it's still.
I'll still get it wrong.
How did Forager, when he defeated the police officer, what was the big revelation?
His shield was vibranium, and no, that's wrong universe. Well, had you not said anything, I wouldn't know the answer to this. But he was a freaking robot with a human brain.
Yeah, that one just kind of threw me off for a little bit. Like, yeah, he was a robot. Why? No idea. And the fact that the robot that the anti-life equation made that fought Superman was very distinctly different than the robot that they built to fight Batman and Forager. Yet all the bombs were exactly the same.
Right. Okay, good question. Number 5. How many females were in the core group of heroes?
This is the token question. Boy, yeah. with the wrong typeface Corey, and I would say that's probably just the singular female character.
You're right. For some reason, Jim Starlin chose Starfire as the only female in the group.
Yeah, all the female characters that they had. Even our new Genesis has female characters.
Right.
There's a whole. What's the name of Granny Goodness's like army? Like something Furies.
Yeah, female Furies. It's in the name, female Furies.
Yeah.
That alliteration, that Kirby alliteration that he got from Stan Lee.
Yeah, the Peter Parkers, the Reed Richards, Sue Storm. The question I had: how many aspects were actually captured during this entire? 4 more were released into the Earth's or our universe, so to speak. How many were actually captured?
That's a great question. Only half were captured, I think, because the one succeeded, so he was never captured, and then the one that smelled the petroleum. Wait, was it the petroleum one? Didn't get captured. So yeah, half, 50% success rate on the hero's part.
I actually had it as only one got captured.
Oh man.
Because if you look at it, Superman, they captured theirs with the gun. Light Ray and Corey, that one escaped, and as you noted, it went back to it fought Darkseid in that in-between world. And then the one that did succeed, obviously that one went away. And the one that they fought with Batman and Forager, the gun, just like you said, had been destroyed. So they couldn't capture that one because the gun was already gone. But they defeated it somehow, but it didn't get destroyed.
That's true. So it could be making a bomb right now somewhere else. Big plot hole too.
Yeah. One, oddly enough, on the Earth is still out there somewhere.
That's right. That explains the rest of the DC universe and what's happened to it since then, because it's...
It actually became Dr. Manhattan.
Right, yeah. Question 6. It's the last one. It's the hardest question I could think of. To contact Dr. Fate, Batman used a what?
The Yellow Pages, apparently. Yes, he
called Salem.
Called a tower that has no windows or doors, yet somehow has a phone line going into it. Somehow.
In 1988, what do you think a payphone cost?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think at that time, it was like 20 cents.
Yeah, it's probably...
You drop 2 quarters or 2 dimes in there and you're good to go.
I think you're right. It's probably close to that. All right, what's your last question?
Yeah, I gave it away earlier, but I will ask it and see if this is more of a test of your memory than anything else.
Dang it.
What obscure catchphrase does Superman say?
And it's not Great Caesar's ghost, right? What about say it again, Sam? Maybe next time I'll believe it.
Say it again, Sam. Say it isn't my fault.
I know.
Maybe the second time I'll believe
What?
it.
It was something Gracie. See, I was going to say goodnight, Gracie. So that would have been wrong. See, that's my memory. But I am 50, so I mean, give me that at least. Goodnight, Gracie. See, I didn't even remember, and I just read it.
It just seemed like he wouldn't ever say that. I don't. I know like he was theoretically raised in Kansas, so entertainment's whatever you can get.
Yeah.
But for him to actually say goodnight, Gracie, just seemed like.
Well, he watched a lot of TV Land, or
Yep. The George Byrne and Gracie Allen show was again. I kind of gave up quite a few of them away as I was retelling, going back through these last 3 issues and trying to figure it out. It seemed like, that one was kind of like the last of them where I was like, I guess that was the thing he said. Like I said, Batman saying Eureka and Superman saying say goodnight, Gracie was pretty much kind of like didn't make the connection there.
Well, that's our review of Cosmic Odyssey.
Yeah, one last thing that was very confusing, and I couldn't figure this out. So on the planet Redshirt, they, they show that there's various life forms, various peoples there, especially after it explodes. But they land, they see all the people with plague diseases, right? So there's that whole community, let's say. But they all kind of are dressed in kind of like rags. They almost look like shepherds. They're all in robes and Egyptian kind of like buildings in the background. And just, that's group one. The planet explodes, and as it's exploding, then you see kind of like this one type of, group as well, as they kind of like are all in furs and they're higher up. Again, they have almost kind of a nomadic clothing style. And, they have braided hair and so forth, and they just get vaporized as the planet explodes. Who the heck is this dude in blue jeans next to the bomb that decided, I'll just go ahead and paint it?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that guy.
He's got Earth-style glasses. He's got just kind of a regular shirt, jeans, shoes, like, those look like they might as well be Chuck Taylors. And why did they need to have it painted yellow? Couldn't they have just constructed it in yellow?
Well, yeah, I almost got the impression that that's Mike Mignola. It was smirking, but
Yeah, somehow he threw himself like Hitchcock in his own stories.
Right.
Yeah, when I read it the first time, I'm like, who is this person?
Yeah.
It's like, did DC create a character called the Painter?
The yellow.
Use this cosmic being that just can paint anything in moments? And I don't know if it was just kind of a thing where it's like, the thing knew that the Green Lantern had a weakness yellow, and so they had to quickly change to match its weakness, and that's where they painted it. But with clearly the guy's got a paint brush,
Right.
and there's buckets of paint down below.
Yeah, spilling all over the floor.
Making a mess.
Right.
Somebody's gonna clean that up. I know the planet exploded, but still, somebody had to clean
It's probably another robot.
that up. It could be. But remember, the anti-life equation can only use that power once.
Right. He no more human-like robots. He's got this artistic artist look to him. That's why I almost feel like he's Jim Starlin or Mignola, like placed in the scene with a smirk.
But that, it was like the one character that had no connection to the aesthetic of the planet. So that was just kind of like, I often wondered, why would you introduce a character just like that, just for that moment, just for that one frame, and then just no purpose?
I think
Shows up.
he's going to be in the sequel.
So it might have been a new Genesis emissary to, Redshirt Planet.
Right. I think you're right. We should name him, and he should be a guest in the next episode.
Yeah. Whenever something that's mysteriously happened, it was because of the yellow. It's like, oh well, it was explained because there was a yellow painter that just showed up and made that one thing happen.
I think that's it.
Yeah. So there's some mysteries, some plot holes, but overall, the story was told.
Right.
And the overview seemed to be pretty straightforward. There was a trajectory that just, you could see it coming. But yeah, there's some, it did leave some questions out there, like who does all the fashion work for Vanagar? They need someone to do. And who's this mysterious painter?
Yeah.
And apparently that Alfred, fine butler, but even better seamstress, create whole costumes in moments.
We all have secret skills, and that's just Alfred's.
Yep, it's his. I think he has actual superhuman powers and does more than Batman does. Just works behind the scenes.
It's probably true. If you know the answer to any of those questions, you can email us. It's and this is why I love comics at gmail.com. We're also on Twitter, and we are at and this is YIL1. That's the thing I could get. So and we have a Facebook page too, and this is why I love comics is on Facebook. So check us out. Leave some comments if you have some answers to who your favorite new god, and it's not Lonar, whatever his name is.
Got the loner.
Yep, got the loner. Let us know. Let us know what series you want to hear next, or else I'm going to have to pick it, and that can't end well. So and this is why I love comics. This is Andy.
And this is Michael.
And we will talk to you next time. As always, thanks to Thunder Chicken for letting me use their music. Go check them out on Spotify.
All this, it's in my heart. What you want, nobody wants you want. To use me, you will rise. But something what you want. To hate me, what you want. To use me, what you want. Nobody, you will rise. But someday.
You liked us, you loved us. We're back again for another round.